Welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I am your host, Dr. Melissa Mann. Join me for conversations about possibilities and tools for having more joy, more play, and way more of you. What would it be like to wake up every day with a wild enthusiasm for living? Hello and welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Mann, and today I have my amazing friend Sukhi Sian with me here, and Sukhi is a psycho-spiritual therapist. And I met Sukhi just a few months ago in London at a writer's workshop for Hay House, and we were standing in line together and became sort of instant friends. And this is the first time I've gotten to see Sukhi live since I left London. And I'm so grateful to have you here with me today, Sukhi. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Melissa. And I'm so grateful to be here with you today as well. And just hearing you then about how we met only a few months ago, and we just kind of hit it off straight away, didn't we, in the queue for the writer's workshop. So thank you.
It was such an amazing experience. And it was my first time in London. And it was just, we thought we'd come on here today and talk a little bit about writing and about Sukhi is a numerologist and also a therapist. And you call yourself a psycho-spiritual therapist. So I thought maybe we'd start there and tell me a little bit about what that means for you. And we'll kind of see where we go.
Okay, yeah, great. So I refer to myself as a psycho-spiritual therapist because it kind of gives me an umbrella term for the different things that I do. So originally, I trained as a counsellor, a psychodynamic counsellor about 20 years ago, which makes me feel quite ancient. So my initial path was really around counselling, so really working in counselling services with young people, children, women around sexual violence, depression, anxiety, a wide range of things. And I've always been quite spiritual, but I found that spirituality was kept quite separate to counselling, and it still is, unless you're specifically training in a modality that covers it. It's quite separate. So so fast forward to around about 8 years ago, I trained in some healing modalities purely for my own development. So Reiki, which then led me on to crystal healing, it all led me into numerology. So therefore, I work with the whole person through all of these different modalities, with the mind, the body, and the spirit. I find with counselling, we're really just working with the psyche, the cognitive part, but we need to include spirituality into our work to provide a holistic approach to support someone's well-being. So in a nutshell, that's what I mean by a psycho-spiritual therapist.
I love that, Sukhi. I love that I met you because we're so similar in that way. And I also consider myself a holistic therapist, which is, on the same vein there of like where we incorporate all the spiritual things, all the energetic things in the whole person and not just the cognitive piece. I always explain to people that if we were just dealing with cognition alone, we're dealing with the very tip of the iceberg. And there's so much more underneath that when we look at the whole person, the whole energetic body, and all of those things that you just talked about create that. So that's amazing to me, first of all, because I don't meet a lot of people like myself. So I love that I met you in line. And I'm wondering, like, I know we're also writing books. So is your book that you're writing, or it's about to come out, right? You have one that's about to come out and another one that you're working on. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, well, originally, the one that I'm writing on, been working on, is still in, it's still there in the background. And the one that is coming out I was really inspired by the workshop we met at. That one just came as a byproduct to the one I'm writing. So that is going to come out very soon. I'm just in the process of, actually, I've got my recent proofread here from Amazon. I'm just doing self-publishing Amazon for now. And basically, I've just got to tweak it a little bit and then it'll be ready. We'll be ready to go live in the next couple of weeks.
That's so exciting. So maybe we can start with that. Can you talk a little bit about that book and what's it about, and what would make somebody want to pick it up?
Yeah, sure. So this book is it's called A Love Lost and Found: The Journey of Love Through Heartbreak, Loss and Separation. And it is a collection of poems that I have written across my own journey. I mean, a lot of these date back, some of these date back from 2012, and then mainly 2017, 2018 onwards, up until around 2020. So I already had those poems kind of written. And when we went to the Hay House workshop, I suddenly realized, actually, I've got a lot of material that I can curate and put together. And that's how it started to happen. I started to look at my poetry, look at the different things I was kind of going through at that time, and then emerged 13 key categories, stages from, and all of it is really about that. It's about becoming our true self. So starting with kind of the, how often we hide our true self, we're disconnected from our true self, and the journey that we go through to reach that transformation, which will kind of include the things that we're enduring across, through our journey, that we, things we're seeking for. We're looking for love outside of ourselves, external validation. The theme around love, heartbreak, loss and separation, around how relationships can really teach us to go inwards, and what we're looking for outside of ourselves is often inside ourselves, but it's not taught really by society. And we go through, we can go through an awakening, a breaking down of, shedding layers, all sorts.
Yeah. So much. How cool. I love that you took, your own journey and your own healing process into creating something for other people that maybe people don't necessarily talk about or look at. And I love the poetry piece of it, that there's sort of this creative soul piece, that there is like a connection for anybody who's going through or has gone through that process.
Yeah, and I think that's what I loved about it more. It was that soul. It felt like this book, but it took me, I don't know, like how long ago was it? It took me about 6 weeks to pull it together, and it really felt like it was my soul just flowing through me. Whereas the other book, I felt there was kind of, I couldn't really get into it at the moment. Whereas this, I feel like, because it's to do with the past, it felt right to get it out there. And along with that, with the poetry, I've got affirmations, I've got journaling prompts, so people can kind of like open the book at a random page and see what relates to them, or they can go through in order, or they could go through a specific stage that they kind of resonate with. So it's there. So although it's my personal journey, I'm not making it much disclosure around my journey. It is down to interpretation to the reader and their meaning making, and what it might evoke in them, where they're currently at.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that you incorporated all of that. I can't wait to read it, or, where you have that piece of, yes, this was my journey, and this is also your journey, where you invite somebody else into their own introspection and their own, the journey that they're on, wherever they're at right now. So that sounds amazing. That's so exciting. And, we were talking a little bit about, like a book before a book. Like sometimes we have to get out so much of what's true for us, and there is so much value in that. It sounds like it was created so quickly because it was all like ready to be birthed.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we have to do that when we are creating any kind of project, is like there's so much here that's ready to come out, and to get all of that out to the world, and then it builds. Like then we start to build on the next thing that we're writing. I recently also put a book out on Amazon, which I haven't actually talked about anywhere yet, but here we are. And
let's talk about it today.
Right. And it's called Alchemizing Anxiety, but it's also about my past journey with anxiety, and tools and practical tips and tricks for how I actually overcame that also. So it's cool, because I think that we both kind of have had that journey where we've put out a book to the world of this is everything that's been true up till now. And it also now is creating space for what's to come.
Yes, absolutely. And it felt like that, when he said about giving birth to something, is like, okay, give birth to this book now. That will create space for the next stage. And I think, like yourself as well, like, because that's part of your past journey up until this point, there's something about it's safe and okay to put it out there now. It's like, interestingly, I know we're going to talk about numerology as well today. We're currently in a 9-year numerology, and so 2025 is a year 9, and 9 is all about things coming to an end, completion, full circle, tying up loose ends. So it almost feels like these books for both of us are things that have been our journey, but this is the year to kind of close that loop,
Yes,
the ending into a new beginning.
And it's so interesting that you say that. And I do want to hear more about your numerology, because that is something I've heard the year of the 9 thing quite a bit, because it's so up in everybody's world. There is such an ending of things. And I love what you said too about like tying up loose ends. And it's almost like I'm making space for what's next and for what is getting created and everything that's sort of like starting to percolate of like what's coming. So can you tell us a little bit more about numerology and how you got into it, and what do you know? Because I don't know as much about it, and I just think it's so cool.
I mean, numerology, again, it was part of my journey actually in this period as well, actually, around. So I stumbled across numerology. So in 2017 is when I became attuned to Reiki. And if anyone doesn't know about Reiki, it's life force energy healing. And through that process of learning, you go through, it's about self-healing. So a lot of it is self-healing. So doing self-Reiki healing on ourselves for a period of time. And it was during that period of time that I started to see numbers everywhere. But the first time I saw numbers was actually in meditation during a Reiki self-healing session that I was doing on myself. I was lying there on the sofa in my one of my old house with my ex-husband, well, now my ex-husband. I was lying there doing my meditation, and I just got this vision of 1111 in a cloud form. It was like the 1111 was a cloud and the back was the sky, and it was so prominent. And at the time I didn't think anything of it, it just came up from meditation. But after that I started to see numbers everywhere, see 1111, other numbers, mirrored numbers, angel numbers, so repeated numbers. And yes, that's where it all kind of began. I didn't even know it was kind of a thing then, until when I spoke to my spiritual community, where I was doing my Reiki, and then I realized it's a bit of a thing. It's actually, it's not me going mad. It's symbolic. It's, and that same year then, 2017, the end of 2017, I went to a Mind, Body, Spirit festival thing, and only because somebody had tickets that became available, they couldn't go. So they had some free tickets there, and they put it out on a group, said, do you want to go to this festival? And I was like, okay. So I went along just for the morning. And it's like, as soon as I walked into the Mind, Body, Spirit event, my energy was just almost pulled towards one corner of the room. So I just literally walked around these tables, and literally just went and walked to this one stall, and it said numerology. And I just stood there thinking, oh, what's numerology? And I went over to them and said, oh, I've been seeing numbers. And they were like, they offered me a free reading at the stall. They did the free reading. And so that, which was looking at this is what I do now. So it's looking at the energy behind my name, my date of birth, and what that symbol means in terms of my life path. Anyway, I got a call. I had a bereavement. I had to go. So I left the Mind, Body, Spirit event. So it was almost like I was meant to go there for that.
Yeah, and that alone, because that's when it was like, I gotta go.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Cool.
I know. It was just, and then it just led from that. I ended up signing up to one of their courses, and that was it really. It was that's how I kind of got into it, in a really short way of explaining it. But it's all, again, it was like soul led. It felt like I was meant to be there. And
That's
And
amazing.
I know.
So what is that? So we were talking about titles for this and we called the spiritual guidance through numbers. So when you see 1111 or when you see numbers everywhere, say a little bit about that. Like, is
Mm.
that coming from spirit guides, angels? Like,
Yeah,
what's your sort of belief on like what are the numbers? Where are they coming
yeah,
from? What can
yeah.
we learn from them?
They are, yeah, exactly. There's so many, there's lots of books and insight on there, people channeling messages from angels. So there is, they can be deciphered as angel messages. They can be, I would say, messages from the spiritual realm, angel, spirit guides, universe, God, however you want to see it. So originally I was looking at them as angel numbers because that's what I was, when I was Googling, when I was seeing numbers, that's what was coming up. So I was kind of understanding them in that way, in terms of if we're going through change, or certain numbers might appear at certain times, especially if we're seeing the same number over and again, then that's a message that's coming through, because the universe, angels, God, spirit, they're wanting to get our attention for us to be able to find the meaning behind that number. And and sometimes what I've later on kind of come to believe, it sometimes it could just be a wink or a sign from the universe saying you're on the right track. Or how we might find a feather or a coin or something from spirit, numbers can also show up like that. And since doing the numerology, it's been really interesting that when I've done numerology readings with people, so what I will do for a numerology reading is prepare their chart based on their name and date of birth. It gives insight into aspects of their soul, what their soul has carried from previous lifetimes, why it's incarnated this lifetime, but also give insight into the personality, so the psychological, emotional aspects of us. And it's really interesting then when a number that somebody has been seeing actually appears in their chart for example, in a certain part of their chart, if it's their name or if it's during a period of time that they're going through. So that's given me a different perspective. It's almost like they've needed to come to have a numerology reading to understand why they're seeing a certain number, which makes it more specific to them rather than quite general understanding, which we might find, through angel numbers, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. That's really cool because I think that, I'll do that. I'll see 222 or 333 and I'll look that up. Like, what does that mean? And I get a lot of, from that, but it sounds like what you do is a lot more personalized than that, where you really meet with somebody and you're looking at their sort of number chart, as you will, and,
Yeah.
kind of seeing why something might be showing up a certain way for them or what their birthday and all of that means for them specifically. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's looking at the energy behind every letter has a number frequency. So when I'm decoding the name, it's translating the letters to numbers, and then you use a system to kind of calculate it all up, and then working with the number. So your first name will have an energy, your middle name, if you have one, will, your surname will, etc. And then it gives insight into different parts of our chart. For example, it will give insight into what is meant to be your most challenging thing this lifetime that you're meant to experience, or what is your soul, what gifts has your soul carried from previous lives that you don't need to necessarily learn in this life, you just need to remember them.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's so amazing. And when we go through awakenings, it's almost like we're remembering our gifts that are innate, because they're in the soul, and even with writing, we could actually, my soul song number it's 41 14 5, and that is actually the messenger and the scribe. So in terms of writing, that makes so much sense to me now, and it's almost given me permission to actually, part of my life path is to write or use word, whether spoken or written, to get my message out there to help people. So also it can really help with you understanding your path as well.
That's so cool. And people are always looking, people search a lot, for their path or what are their gifts. And I really love what you said about remembering, because that's something
Yeah.
my friend and I were just talking about this yesterday about, the idea of like, we're always seeking, but like, what if we're remembering, and like remembering like what it is that we, that like our soul purposes and like what we came here to do and to be. And so much of that is already within us. But it sounds like, as people get numerology readings, then they can have more of a sense of like, oh, this all like adds up. This all makes sense. And this, I love what you said about being the scribe, because that is such a part of like your gift in the world. So that's really interesting, actually. So it has to do with name, birthday, anything else?
And if you were born before or after midday, so that gives us access into another part of it. So that's a system that I use with numerology, and so and we always go by the original name at birth, so that's kind of like your blueprint. So even if people obviously change by deed poll or marriage, etc., we always go to the original, which is also really interesting because sometimes people don't like their original names, but that's so interesting in terms of the true self, because it's almost like they're not accepting their true self because they've changed their name. So what's that saying about about their process? So fascinating.
Wow, that is really interesting. I'm just thinking about like somebody who's been married multiple times, so their names have changed, if they change their name every time. Is there anything to the name that they get changed to? Like, is there something in that, or is it not relevant?
It's still relevant. So your original name is always your kind of like foundation, say it's your blueprint. And then any other names that we then change through getting married, it's you're kind of then also using the energy of that name for that period of time. So you're working with that energy, whatever that equates to. So whatever that might mean to in terms of what your soul needed to experience during that time.
Wow.
So it does, yeah. And also we have nicknames, don't we, as well? So in that sense, because the nickname is, the energy, the vibration, the in the voicing of a name, what we're referred to and called, that's also really interesting as well of what that might mean.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm curious. I want to do a reading with you.
Yeah, well,
that sounds really cool. I love that. Well, that's amazing. It's so cool how you are able to incorporate all of these things. And, as a therapist, do you also incorporate some of the numerology with your clients?
Yeah, I have started. I do. So basically, so since I've come out of the spiritual closet, so I've done a lot of work within counselling to, for that. And, with the BACP, which is our British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy, I was part of their kind of like committee for the spirituality division, really with this passion about normalizing spirituality within the counselling profession because there's such a stigma around it. And so, you'll relate to that. And to somebody who's not in counselling who will hear that, I think it might feel a bit bizarre because I think as an outsider, you will just assume spirituality is part of counselling and psychology. But when you're in it, it really isn't. And so it's been a big part of the process in that respect. And because of that, because I've kind of become more out with it, people might know I'm a numerologist when they seek me out for a counsellor, or however. So in that way, it's already in there in the beginning. And people might, actually, I had somebody who, just an example, somebody who was seeing angel numbers, and she sought me out for as a counsellor because I was open to numerology. So although our work was pretty much about counselling, at where she was at her life stage, she came with, after seeing the number 555 a lot constantly. So it kind of gave us a starting point to do the psychological work, but through the guidance of the numbers, which was 555 is about change. It's all about change, transition, and she was going through massive changes at that time on so many levels. So it's come through like that. I have also, sometimes I've done a numerology reading with somebody and then they've wanted counselling, so I've integrated it like that. So I'm really flexible in terms of what the person in front of me needs, in that sense, and we're really clear about what we're doing.
Yeah, that's key. I love that. I found that a lot too, is that people will seek me out because I do the spiritual side of things, because I do the metaphysical things, and just because they're like, I just wanted to, people don't, so you don't think I'm crazy mostly, but so then, will you actually talk about these things with me? I had a lady who just called up yesterday for wanting to do EFT tapping, and kind of the same thing. She was like, can I also like I do like other spiritual things, and like, are
Yeah.
you open to that? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So it's such a cool niche to
Yeah.
have. And and it's funny because on the one hand it's like, oh, isn't that cool, but on the other hand it's like, oh, but it also creates so much for people when you're incorporating all of these things that maybe they wouldn't get elsewhere, that maybe isn't mainstreamed in the field of psychology, that actually helps people. And
Yeah,
people really
exactly.
start to improve their lives because you've given them tools that are maybe things they wouldn't have found anywhere else.
Yeah, you've given that permission to really bring that significant, important core essence of them into the room, and rather than leave it at the door so it can be included, and give that permission to be able to talk about things that they normally feel they have to keep silent or secret,
Yeah, so
and all
much.
the shame around that, yeah, absolutely. And I think the work that you're doing there is wonderful as well, with the metaphysical side and helping people to really understand their energy.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm super grateful. Well, thank you so much, Suki. If somebody was looking for you and not wanted to do, I mean, if they're near you and you're about 2 hours north of London, is that right? Did
Yes,
I make that
2
up?
hours north. Yeah, 2-3 hours, depending whereabouts in London. I had to think then, had to get my bearings.
So, I mean, I'm sure, if you're in that area, amazing. And also if they wanted to find you online, how might somebody find you in the world?
Okay. So I'm based in Derby, which is in the Midlands, so it's Derbyshire. So if you haven't heard of Derby, it's near Nottingham. So so that you might know of it in that way. I'm online. I am most active on Instagram, which is at Enlight with Sukhi. When I've got my numerology page, which is at Numerology with Sukhi. I have got a website, which is www.sukhisian.com. So any of those
That's
forums, really.
amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll put those in the show notes too.
Okay.
But just if somebody's listening and wants to go look you up.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation with me. And I'm so grateful to know you.
Oh, I'm so grateful as well. I'm so glad that we met and we just hit it off straight away.
Me
Love
too.
it.
Oh my goodness. Well, have an amazing rest of your day. And thank you all for listening. And we hope to see you somewhere in the world sometime soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.